Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 16 in your Ready workbook. It's page 261. So if you don't have your Ready workbook open, go ahead and open it now and turn to page 261. Okay, so like I said, this is lesson 16 and it is all about analogies. So before we get started, the first thing we're going to do is draw a box around the title of the lesson. And the title of the lesson is Analogies. And after we do that, the next thing we do is write the title of the lesson at the top of the page. Okay, so after we've done that, let's start trying to break apart the title. So you may not know what an analogy is yet, but I'll tell you, and I want you to write this at the top of your page as well. So an analogy is considered the type of relationships between pairs of words. So type of relationship between pairs of words. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's get started looking at our introduction. So in this lesson, you will study analogies or the types of relationships between pairs of words. The example below is an analogy. Okay, so this just gives us a definition of an analogy, and I underlined it in red for you to see. So an analogy is a relationship between a pair of words. So it's a relationship between two words. So below we have an example of an analogy. So near is to distant as hidden is to exposed. So near is to distant as hidden is to exposed. And this is our example. So this is an example of an analogy. Now I'm going to go ahead and explain how this is an analogy and the relationship between these words. So near and distant are antonyms, and hidden and exposed are antonyms. So near and distant have the same type of relationship as hidden and exposed. So these two have the same relationship, and those two have the same relationship. And that relationship is that they are antonyms. And their relationships are analogous to each other. If something is analogous, it means that it is the same. Okay, sometimes analogies are written with colons. So a colon separates the words in each pair, and the colon stands for the phrase is to. And then if you have a double colon separating the pairs of words, the double colon is going to stand for the word as. So if you have a single colon, it stands for the word is to. And if you have a double colon, it stands for the word as. So down below, we have a little example of this with our colons. So near, we have a single colon there, and that stands for is to. So near is to distant, as. We know it's as because we have the double colon. So near is to distant, as hidden, single colon, is to exposed. So near is to distant, as hidden is to exposed. So that's how you would read that analogy. And remember, our colons stand for different things. So single colon is to, double colon as. So antonym analogies are just one type of analogy. There are a lot of different types of analogies, and the chart below is going to show us those. So this chart gives us 5 different types of analogies that we could have. The first one is synonym. The second one is cause and effect. The third is part to a whole. The fourth one is item and category. And the last one is tool and user. So let's look at some examples of each of these. So we have friendly is to nice, as rapid is to fast. So friendly and nice are synonyms, and rapid and fast are synonyms. So those have the relationship of being synonyms. So cause and effect, fire is to scorch, as to drought is to wither. So if something's on fire, it's getting scorched. If something is going through a drought, it's going to wither. So this is cause and effect. The next one is part to a whole. So foot is to leg, as leaf is to branch. So your foot is part of your leg, and a leaf is the part of a branch on a tree. So these two have the same type of relationship. They are a part of a whole. Number 4, item and category. So horse is to animal, as car is to vehicle. So a horse is a type of animal, and a car is a type of vehicle. So those have the same relationship too. And our last one, tool to user. So camera is to photographer, as stove is to chef. So we know this is a tool to a user because a camera is a tool that a photographer uses, and a stove is a tool that a chef uses. So in this analogy, the photographer is the user and the chef is the user. Camera is the tool, stove is the tool. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the guided practice below. Our guided practice tells us to choose the word that completes the analogy, and then we're going to write those on the line, and then we're going to identify the type of analogy and write that on the line next to the analogy. So we have to choose the word that completes the analogy, and then we have to identify the type of analogy. So before we get started, let's look at the hint out to the side because the hint is always going to help us out. So the hint says, first figure out the relationship between the first pair of words, and then choose the word that will make the second pair of words have the same type of relationship as the first pair of words. So remember, your second pair of words has to have the same relationship as the first pair of words. So you would be best to figure out the relationship between the first set of words before you try to fill in the blank to complete the analogy. So I'm going to give you a chance to do this on your own. So go ahead and get started for me. So I need you to pause the video, and whenever you finish, unpause and we'll go over it. Okay, so I hope you guys made an attempt to get the answer correct. So let's start going over it. So number 1, we have cent is to dollar. So cent is to dollar. So let's figure out the relationship first. So cent is to dollar. So a cent is part of a dollar. So that lets us know that it is part to whole. Because if you have 25 cents, that equals up to $1. So a cent is part of a dollar. So that means inch. The rest of that analogy also has to be part to whole. So an inch to meter. Meter is the one we're looking for, because an inch is a metric unit, and so is meter. So an inch is smaller than a meter, but it also helps to make up a meter. So this is our part to whole. So next we have saw is to carpenter, as telescope is to blank. So our relationship between the first two words, so we have saw is to carpenter. So this lets us know that the relationship will be tool to user. We know that because a saw is a type of tool, and a carpenter is the person who uses the tool. So we know the second part of that analogy has to be tool to user also. So we know we have a telescope, which is a type of tool. So who would use a telescope? If you said astronomer, you would be correct. So saw is to carpenter, as telescope is to astronomer. So number 3, tragedy is to sorrow, as triumph is to blank. So let's look at tragedy and sorrow first. So if a tragedy happens, you might feel very sorrowful. So that lets me know that this is probably going to be cause and effect. Because if a tragedy happens, our cause, you might be sorrowful, which would be the effect. So if something bad happens, you'll feel sad. That's cause and effect. So the second part of our analogy, triumph is to blank. So if you are triumphant, it means that you probably have won something. So if you won something, you might feel pride. So pride is your correct answer. Okay, last one. Eagle is to bird as shark is to blank. So let's look at the relationship between the first two. So we have eagle and bird. So I know eagle is a kind of bird. So this tells me that we're looking at item / category. Our bird is the category and the eagle is the item that falls under that category. So we know that the second half of our analogy also has to be item to category. So we have shark. We know it can't be tuna. We know it can't be ocean because that's the place that the shark lives. So the only one it could work with is fish. So eagle is to bird as shark is to fish. Shark is our item, so the type of fish, and fish is our overall category. Okay, so moving on to page 262. Our independent practice. So we have 5 questions here for you to answer. So these are all working with analogies, and you are going to choose the correct answer that completes the analogy. So remember, always make sure to figure out the relationship between the first 2 words, and that will help you complete the analogy. But I want you guys to go ahead and do this on your own first, and then come back and we will go over it. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you guys all have made an attempt by now and you have unpaused your video. So let's start going over it. Let's look at number 1 first. So we have sink is to kitchen as classroom is to blank. So let's figure out the relationship first. So we have sink and we have kitchen. Well, a sink is in a kitchen, so that tells me this is going to be part to whole. So part to whole. So we know that classroom to blank also has to be part to whole. So a classroom is going to be inside a school. So that tells me C is the only answer that would work there. So sink is to kitchen as classroom is to school because a classroom will be inside of a school. So let's look at number 2 next. Laptop is to computer as ring is to blank. So let's look at the relationship between laptop and computer. So we have a laptop, which is a kind of a type of computer. So that lets me know that we have the type of analogy this is item to category. Because a laptop is going to always fall under the category of a computer. So that lets us know that the second half of the analogy also has to be item to category. So think about the category a ring would fall in. So a ring, when I say ring, I want you to think of the kind that you wear on your finger. So your answer should be jewelry. Because ring falls under the category of jewelry. So laptop is to computer as ring is to jewelry. Let's look at number 3 next. So joke is to laughter as virus is to blank. So let's look at the relationship between joke and laughter first. So if someone tells a joke, that probably makes you laugh. So that tells me this is probably going to be cause and effect, because if someone tells a joke and you laugh, that is always cause and effect. So that makes me know that the second half of the analogy also has to be cause and effect. So if you get a virus, what is the effect? Well, it can't be computer because that has nothing to do with a virus except for the kind that you get on your computer, but that's not really what we're looking at. So, cure could work, but I don't think that's our best answer. So, if you get a virus, would you cry? Maybe, maybe not. That's definitely not our best answer. I think we should go with illness because if you get a virus, you're going to be sick, and illness is definitely a synonym for sick. So, joke is to laughter as virus is to illness. Okay, so number 4, cozy is too comfortable as odd is to blank. So let's look at the relationship between cozy and uncomfortable. So if something is cozy, it means that it's warm, it's comfortable, that it's awesome all around. If something's uncomfortable, you probably don't like it. It makes you irritable, uncomfortable, just bad. So that tells us that these are going to be antonyms. So that tells us that the second half of the analogy, the relationship between those two words will also be antonyms. So we're looking for an antonym for the word odd. So the word that we're looking for is ordinary, because remember, if something's odd, it doesn't happen all the time, but ordinary is the opposite of that. So cozy is too uncomfortable as odd is too ordinary. And the relationship between all of those words is the fact that they are antonyms. So last one, guys. Hammer is to builder as microphone is to blank. So let's look at the relationship between the first two. So we have hammer and builder. So a hammer I know is a tool, and a builder is probably going to use a hammer for whatever they're building. So we know that this is a tool/user situation. So that lets me know that the second half of the analogy also has to be tool to user. So I know that the tool is microphone. So who would use a microphone? If you said singer, you would be correct. The singer here is going to be the only one that could use a microphone. So hammer is to builder as microphone is to singer. Okay, guys, hopefully you got all of these correct and you know way more about analogies than you did before. But as always, if you have questions about anything, make sure to let me know. Okay, with that, I hope you guys have a great day.